have been the difference?
Right?
Well, first of all, what I want to say is that this survey was actually brought on by myself and my command staff, some of our appointed positions for the Sheriff's Office administration. And Chief Musgrove took the lead on that and put it out, and they ended up with a survey back. And then part of that strategy was to put in a survey team, culture survey team, to address the top topics and what those were of concern, to truly identify what they were and bring the team players, as in the supervisors and the line staff and record staff and everybody involved, in on the same page. And at that point in time, once they brought that culture survey team together, at the lead of Chief Musgrove, and eventually he pulled out and let them take the lead on that. But some things I want to point out, and we have this on our facts culture survey on our webpage at burnettsheriff.com, that 76% of the Chelan County Sheriff's staff agree with the direction that this agency is going. And let me show you how that is. Because out of the 53 commissioned officers, or the staff, the commission staff at the time the survey was issued, only 37 of the 53 actually participated in the survey. And when analyzing the response to all 19 questions on the survey, on average, only 13 of the 37 staff responded negatively to any of the questions. And so the perspective on the officers' testimonies from that was the information that we moved on. And so really it was the minority saying that they had issues, but we still addressed those to move them forward. But a lot of those problems were between the staff members and themselves, not between the line staff and the administration, but sometimes between one-on-one peers. And so we said, it's time for you to go back, address them, fix this, take this as a supervisors group, take this as a line staff group, and we'll support you in those things. And so we wanted to do that. So really it was our idea. We wanted to know what was out there to move this forward so we could make our staff, our office a better place to work.
The county's lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in retaliation lawsuits filed by former deputies, and a third is active in federal court. How would you prevent further or similar lawsuits in the future?
Well, that's a good question, because it's not just as simple when you're mitigating risk analysis. And so if we get into a disciplinary situation, whether it's minor days off, or coaching and counseling, or all the way up to termination, there's a lot of steps and process along the way. And one of that is we have fact finders. That's done at the chief level for the fact finding, or if it's done at the supervisor level, or if it's addressed and taken outside of the agency for a independent agency, could be another law enforcement agency or an attorney's office to do that fact-finding investigation. Then that comes up to the administrative level, to the undersheriff, and he completes that. But along the way, there's a lot of different things that they have to follow. And there's county attorneys, there's county HR, there's a county administrator, there's even the commissioners themselves. And then if it gets into the serious side of it, on severe or heavier discipline and or termination, as we're going to be dealing with what we call Washington State County Risk Pool. It's basically our insurance piece to that. And the county has to pay into a policy. If they end up paying out, it's going to be a $100,000 deductible on the county. But along the way, those advisors come back, and it's a team of advising against policy violations and our criminal acts that they do. So I don't think that we would change a whole lot. There's a lot of things that go into to mitigate. And it could come down from every group there saying, you know what, this may cost the county some money. But what they're doing is they look at it at settlement. Almost all court cases get settled outside of court. That's the way we are on the criminal and almost all on the civil side. So when they come back in and say, how do we risk analysis, what is the likelihood that this is gonna be favorable in the county side, they make those decisions, they come back, and then they look at that, go, if it's liable to, if it's going to go to court, arbitration, or even when we get into a federal lawsuit or something like that, or a state lawsuit, they have to determine on what they believe the court costs are going to be for their attorneys to put this case together and fight it, because they've already decided and agreed that they are backing the county on their decision making. And then they have to decide how much is that going to be, and sometimes it could be $300,000 or $400,000 just to take that through court. And at that point in time, they decide, is it worth it to do that and go on and risk the potential of losing that litigation, or is it better just to settle outside? And a lot of those things, again, that happens at a big realm. It doesn't happen just at the sheriff's office. We're actually just a small portion of that and a percentage of that decision making. So we're going to continue to go through our legal advisors and do the best we can, and there's a lot in play here that we do, and I have a lot of confidence in the county system and those groups that we counsel with.
Mike?
I would do a whole lot different. I would start looking around at East Wenatchee, Douglas County, Wenatchee PD, and start to think, well, why aren't they paying out this kind of lawsuits? They're not. So it's just Chelan County in this area. We're the only ones paying it out. And we should rethink our legal counsel. And we should follow our policies and procedures. Or maybe we should learn from the first couple times we've been sued and try to do things differently. Because every single time, the arbitrators or the courts are saying, you have a history of this. Your county administrator sent you an email and talked about a hostile work environment, bullying, harassment, intimidation. What did you do to correct it? Nothing. We've done nothing. That's why we have another federal suit. That's probably not going to go very well for us. All you have to do is look around. If other agencies, because we're always talking about our relationship across the state, why don't we reach out to other agencies like, how are you guys not getting sued? Or if you are, how are you not paying out money? Because Chelan County seems to be the most publicized one. If anyone else can find me, anyone else that's paying it out, I will humbly shut my mouth and quit talking about it. But it looks like we're the only ones in the area that's paying out that kind of money. So follow your procedures. If your legal counsel is not actually delivering, get different legal counsel. And I think the last time, the commissioners even told us this is going to start coming out of your budget. So we should probably start listening, because the powers that be, our taxpayers, our citizens, our employees are tired of it. But yet here we are, looking at another federal lawsuit. Let's change the way we've been doing business. It's time for change.
Okay, Mike? If elected, how would your religious faith shape you as a sheriff? And would your personal beliefs affect your ability to fairly serve those with different beliefs?
Doesn't affect me. When I put my uniform on, I'm no longer Mike Morrison. I'm Deputy Morrison, or Sheriff Morrison. So I understand not everyone's got the same opinions, feelings, beliefs as me, and that's fine. I follow code, I follow the RCW, I follow case law, and that's how I do my job. My personal opinions and feelings don't apply. If you were to go out and say, this is my personal opinion or feeling when you're testifying on the stand, you're probably gonna get your lunch handed to you by defense counsel, because they don't care what your personal feelings or opinions are. So follow the law, follow case law, because that's usually something that another officer's done wrong, and try not to do that, and just continue to go on, do your job, put the uniform on. My uncle, who was sheriff, did it. My mom, who was a lieutenant, did it. My dad, who's a officer, did it. My cousin, who's a sergeant, he's done it. They leave their personal opinions and feelings at home. This is not unique to law enforcement. So check in to service, get your uniform on, serve the community, treat everyone equally with respect, and keep your personal opinions to yourself. Like I said, I'm still Mike Morrison behind my uniform, but I understand my personal life should remain my personal life, and try to keep it out of your professional job.
Brian?
Would you mind stating that?
How does your religious faith shape you as a sheriff? How does it affect your ability to govern?
Well, I would disagree with what my opponent said to some sense, because yes, we are going to enforce based on our current RCWs, which is the revised code of Washington and the Washington Administrative Code. We're also going to follow the Constitution, and we're going to stick to that because we sworn an oath. And if we can't uphold that, then it's definitely time to be removed or step down. But that's like, I think for your own faith, I think it should have some groundwork. If your faith is worth following, then it would be something that has brought you up and taught you a work ethic. For me, it's a work ethic. It's my integrity. When we look at the core values of the Chelan County Sheriff's Office for integrity, teamwork, and excellence, that's what my faith brings there. And it doesn't mean that I've always been perfect. What it means is that I strive to do that, and if I fail, then I have some counseling and people that I go to as mentors, and those could be at all different levels. Those could be people outside of law enforcement. Those could be people at your peer level. There could be people below you, around you, in all different directions. But you should have people that you go to for wise counsel that you hold yourself accountable to. And to me, that's what that faith is, that does for me. And as I raise my children, as I remain a husband and try to be the best husband and a father that I can be, I mean, I didn't get there with 35 years without having some things stretch us through that process. Even in a good family foundation, there's trying times that come our way. And so I fall back on my faith to say, what am I called to do? But at no point in time am I going to discriminate people based on my faith and my religion. So for me, I think it's an advantage for me and would take me up to the next level to continue to serve as the elected sheriff a fourth term.
Same with you, Brian. Describe your personal philosophy and approach to policing. And what do you think makes an effective law enforcement agency?
I think makes a law enforcement agency is one, you have to build relationships. If not, you have to restore those relationships. And those relationships go in every different direction. From your peers, because in a peer type setting is when we go to different conferences at a chief and sheriff level, the networking that goes on is amazing. Because you come in and you find out information on programs that maybe another agency has started or has had success with, or ones that they've had struggled with and they've learned lessons from. So lessons learned, both negative and positive. So we want to continue to enforce that, and we want to bring in leadership training. We've always wanted to be, and something we've strived for the last 12 years, is to be a supervised-led agency. We want our supervisors making the decisions on the ground and leading their staff in a way, but they're also unified. And that's one of the places we've struggled to get there in the past, and I think we're closer and in a better spot than we've ever been before. I'm really super proud of the supervisors that we have right now working with our chiefs and our command staff in an amazing way. We have great relationships around regionally. So we're going to continue with that on that leadership level. Servant leadership is we have to look at, it's not just what's best for the individual. We always want to do what's good for our employees. But I had a commissioner when I was first coming in, as I was running in 2010 for the first time to be elected as sheriff. And he told me, he said, Brian, if you keep three things in mind, he says, you keep the citizens first, you keep the employees second, and you and your command staff third, I think you'll do really well. And that's what we always try to strive as a 30,000-foot view, is what is best for the community, the citizens we serve. And then we try to tap it in and tie it in with also with our employees, and not only our employees, but our neighbor employees, our brothers and sisters in the other agencies, whether they're law enforcement agencies, emergency services, schools, departments within our county. We have to have partnerships in there. We don't always have to agree, but we have to work collaboratively together.
Mike?
Protecting and serving, establishing relationships with our community, and realizing that we as law enforcement cannot solve every single problem within our community. That's why we got to the point we're at right now, where they came out with mandates that told us to stop doing law enforcement the way we were doing law enforcement before. Because we were trying to insert ourselves into positions that we were not qualified to do, not trained to do, had no lawful authority to even be there in the first place. So we need to listen to the citizens of Washington State, specifically the citizens of Chelan County, and say, what is it that you expect from us? So in the last election, there was a big conversation about what we as the agency were going to do differently with drugs hitting our street, specifically fentanyl. That was in 2018. We're still talking about it. We still don't have a plan. We have one guy from our agency that's out there on the drug task force. I don't really think that's taking a proactive attack on it. I've also seen that, I'm sure some of you are noting that we have a lot of unhoused coming into our neighborhood. So we don't have a plan for that. I mean, clearly we should have been able to see that this is happening all around. It's happening in Olympia, Seattle, Spokane, Yakima. We do have entities within this county that want to help. The Wenatchee Mission, I was just out there last week talking with them to see what they're doing to address this, since they're welcoming a lot of this population in and trying to help them, trying to get them back up on their feet. And they said, you are the first employee from Chelan County that we have ever had come by and stop by and talk to us and see what you're doing. They're actually setting up facilities to invite these people here, provide them with garbage, outhouse facilities, plumbing, and then trying to give them assistance to go back, find a job, get out of the situation they're in, and hopefully get them in a different direction or become citizens of Chelan County, productive. So I'm also going to continue to work with our partners, but I also realize we're going to need to expand out from what we've been doing and get the focus back to what our community wants and stop focusing on what our reputation is in the state. I've said it before, I don't care if we're number one in the state for training. I'm a trainer. I do think we should get training, but I want to make sure that we're number one in the state for our citizens being happy with the level of service we have and addressing our issues before they become a problem or the storm hits, so to say. So let's get out there. Let's get back to focusing on talking to our community, because those are the ones that we serve, not ourselves.
Same with you. So you referenced some 2021 law changes. That there was a series of police reform measures passed. Were those changes good or bad? Explain why.
They were a mix. So like we just talked about, they did force us out of our comfort zone and had us deal with problems in a different way. So instead of forcing them onto a gurney for people in crisis, and at times breaking them or breaking ourselves, or worst case scenario, we've had KBM law firm that's come over and done legal briefs before this even came out. They were saying your guys' approach of how you're dealing with people in crisis is outdated. Here's other agencies that are approaching it the same way you are, and this has gone bad for them. They've eventually had situations where they shot and killed people that were in crisis that weren't committing any crimes. So these laws did force us to come up with a different solution and say, law enforcement's not going to take care of all of our problems. We do need to get other resources. So behavioral health came online, and we have those entities now within our agency. I recognize that it's a good thing, and we've changed the way we've done it. We should be looking at it the same way with drugs. Clearly the state has said we're not going to give you as much authority in the past to arrest people. But we know that drugs cause a lot of problems in our community, so instead of sitting back and complaining about it, that, oh, we can't make any arrests anymore, this is so tough, we need to figure out a different way of doing things. It's called adapting. I'm not saying that I'm okay with it. I know that's what my opponent's camp has tried to say, that I'm all right with Washington State pretty much locking our hands behind our back. No, but we do need to figure out a way to continue to do law enforcement until our legislators, who actually do the laws, can change this and get it back. I certainly don't agree with the pursuit laws. I think it's a horrible idea. Clearly we've seen people flee from us, they no longer respect us, and they know they don't have to stop for us. So getting ahead of some of the issues that we are seeing with these laws is a good thing. Continuing to fight in the courts and with our legislators to get this back to a normal, acceptable level for our citizens is something we're going to aim for. But overall, they are what they are. Those are the laws. We can whine and kick and scream, but those are it. So let's figure out a way to get through it. That's what I've been doing here the last couple of years. Bill surprisingly been able to make arrests. So I think that they do have positives, but there are certainly negatives, and I hope that we can continue our relationship with our legislators to have them continue fighting while we continue to fight out here for our citizens.
Brian, your thoughts on the 2021 changes?
Yeah, well, I want to back up because in 2019, Initiative 940 came through, and it was a de-escalation bill. And it's right after they did that, they started running the other legislation reform right behind it. So they took all of 2020 to determine, and they had the Criminal Justice Training Commission involved. They had a lot of testimony, and I will tell you this, that Wenatchee PD was probably led by Captain Brian Chance, was one of the foremost persons that went in and testified for what we were looking at for the de-escalation piece. And once they established what those rules were going to be for the training, there was some great training to come out of this. We're hosting the PTI regional training, one of 3 regional training sites on the east side of the Cascades. And we put together the regional training team, and several of them are sitting back here in the audience. One retired, and one is our current PTI coordinator. And he's our subject matter expert. And I can tell you this, that training is amazing. And it made us advance to how we patrol tactic things for all of our agencies coming together, because we're training multiple agencies. Having it here saved us a lot of money, but that training is excellent, and we've led the way in the state by doing it. But here's the fact on the 2021 legislation, Pete, that you're talking about, is that it was poor policy. I've said that from the beginning. I said it before it was passed. I'll continue to say that. And almost every elected sheriff in the state, including King County, was saying the exact same thing. And the chiefs are right on the board. The WASPC president, Chief Crown from Wenatchee PD, sits in the back. Don't take my word for it. Go and have a conversation with him. Sorry to put you on the spot there, Chief. But multiple sheriffs and chiefs and command level staff went and testified to Olympia. We didn't go to Olympia because they were closed down. We were Zoom testifying why these bills were bad policy. And they said, if these pass these things, you're going to see an increase in crime. You can't stop enforcing low-level crimes and not see an uptick, and a massive uptick in personal property crimes and personal person crimes that are assaultive in nature and lead a risk to the quality of life that we have right here in Chelan County. And that's one of the reasons we've seen, along with some other policy changes on the border, of this massive influx of fentanyl. And we have been doing things to change that. We've actually restructured the task force. Yes, we took people out because Chelan County was leading the way in staffing up to 3 times the other agencies since 2004. And Wenatchee PD just stepped up, brought in their PROACT team, 2 members, and their sergeant, and we were able to pull the sergeant out and save county taxpayers over $150,000 a year while bringing East Wenatchee back to the task force, while bringing Douglas County back. And we have a much larger team. They're more effective than they've ever been. and you can pull the stats and we'll show you, they're doing an amazing job. The thing is, the stuff that's coming in, we've got a storm bigger than we've ever had, so you're gonna see an uptick in that fentanyl and the homelessness and the overdoses and now poisoning.
Along the same lines, in 2021, drug possession was decriminalized. How's that affected Chelan County, and do you agree with the state Supreme Court's decision?
No, because everybody knew the Blake decision, one of those things that happened was, it was found to be, I believe, unconstitutional. Said that everybody heard of it, those aren't my pants. Okay, this was a court case that was appealed in Spokane, and it led to that. They could have went in and potentially just added a couple words back in there, but again, the flavor and the angle and the direction that the Senate and the House Representative majority was going was to make those changes and potentially decriminalize it. Again, sheriffs and chiefs went in and testified, please don't do this. We're gonna see an uptick in crime and homelessness. And again, because of the fentanyl crisis coming up from our border, and those seizure numbers are huge. I did a border tour back in 2021 in the spring, and we came back because I wanted to be able to testify firsthand, not basically what was happening on immigration, but on drug smuggling and human trafficking. And we found the real numbers, and they were shocking. And not only did they say we were expecting to see in 2021 massive 800 plus to 1,000% increases in fentanyl seizures, it's happened. And right now we're just starting to count it up. So in 2021, in Chelan County, we saw 6 fentanyl-related overdose deaths. But today's date, we're up around 25 for total overdose drug deaths, and the majority of those are related to fentanyl. And so this is a big increase on why we're seeing in the homelessness. I think we need to get back to say, we've got to give back the rights of the law enforcement officers to have more rights than the criminals and allow them to enforce, because this is going to affect quality of life right here for you and me, no matter what the numbers end up being. And so we need to give the authority back to the local communities, and that's what the state's been trying to take away for several years.
Mike?
Clearly, it wasn't a well thought out law. I mean, it was a joke when we were in the academy that, these aren't my pants or my friend's pants. So you never thought it really actually come to fruition that would actually be an acceptable legal defense, but it is. The Washington State Supreme Court ruled on it. And it kind of comes back to what I was just talking about. Once again, this is the law. So what are we going to do about it? Are we going to sit here and complain, or are we going to find options on how to address this issue? Because I haven't seen us come up with anything different to address the problem. I mean, clearly this war on drugs has been going on since the late 60s. And yet every single time we take out one drug, another one pops up, and then another one. So addiction, the demand, the United States has probably some of the highest demand in the world. So we need to come up and figure out a different way to address the problem, because our previous approach of we're gonna arrest every single person, and that's the way we're gonna take care of drugs. It hasn't worked. So I get it, we still need to arrest people. We still need to hold them accountable for doing drugs, but what other alternatives and tools do we have present for them? My aunt's a prime example. She was addicted to meth. She lost her kids. She was associated with a break-in into my grandmother's house, and life was spinning downward quickly for her. So here she is now, finishing up her PhD. She's one of the lead drug and alcohol counselors in Thurston County, and handcuffs were not part of any of that equation. And now she's out there telling her story, working, providing resources to address the issue, and helping those that need help to get assistance. So yes, we do need to keep fighting and try to get this law changed over, but most of you see that Washington State's not really that interested right now in trying to change these laws over. So doesn't mean we got to stop. Hopefully we can get some better legislators in there that are going to want to change these rules for the better, so our state's not going into chaos. But for the time being, we are that line. We need to figure out a solution on how we're going to keep this from spiraling into chaos, because no matter what, it's here. So not a well thought out law, but we need to be resourceful, adapt, not kick back, and make sure that we are focusing on the problems at hand and come up with solutions. That's why we have educated individuals within our agencies that we need to go out, and if we don't have the answers here, let's go out and utilize some of those networks that we established and see, how are you guys dealing with it? So it seems like Seattle might be coming up with some solutions by pushing everything out. I don't think that's probably the answer, but clearly they're thinking outside the box. We need to do the same. I would point out one more thing, that the Wenatchee mission down there is contacting a lot of these people and asking, where did you come from? So Virginia's shipping them over here. I don't think our agency's ever notified us of that. And other municipalities are also pushing them in here in Chelan County, and they are packing them up and sending them back where they came from. So Let's focus on dealing with our own citizens and our own problems before we take on the nation's.
So violent crime, particularly gang-related shootings, is on the rise. What should be done to stop this from increasing further?
We have to make contacts early in school. That's what I've been hearing as a school resource officer, nationally certified through NASRO. We saw that one of the biggest issues is that these groups want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be associated with something bigger than themselves. They want to be part of this group to give them a different image. If we are not out there battling for our kids at an early age and addressing this problem, there is no way that we are going to win this back. We are seeing officers that have moved up here from San Diego, LA, that had said, hey, we notified you guys about this 10 years ago, that if you didn't get a hold of it now, this problem is going to spiral out of control. Once again, it's networking out with those entities and asking, hey, LA, you have a pretty big gang problem. What would you have done differently if you got it at its infancy, like we have here in Wenatchee? Or hey, Chicago, you have a gang problem. What are you guys doing? We don't have the solutions. I think Wenatchee PD is the one taking this most head on, and I think they're doing a good job. But could we have done anything different to address the problem earlier? And I think that is winning hearts and minds in the school, trying to get these kids to know the gang is not going to be your answer. It's not going to change the way that life's going to go for you. And I get it. That's not always going to be the most effective way. They're not going to listen to us all the time. But if we can reach 1, 2, and maybe that starts to branch out, and we can start getting them to look towards other opportunities in the community besides joining a gang, that's what we need to do. That's what I would do differently. Try to focus younger, and then on our upper end, the gangs that are here, put more resources towards it. I mean, we have one kind of in that PROACT task force team. I would say we should probably bump it up. When my opponent first came on in 2010, we had 4. A sergeant, an analyst, 2 detectives. Now we're down to 1. And I think our problem is probably a little bit bigger than it was in 2010. But that's just my opinion.
Brian?
It's multifaceted. It's not, law enforcement is not the answer to this, people. Government is not the answer, but they are a piece of the puzzle. And so we need to get people in our communities involved. It needs to be faith-based at all different levels. Our schools need to be involved. In the Washington State school, when we say no child left behind, they've handcuffed the school districts, the local school districts, on how they can discipline severe, what I call criminals within their own institutions. And so school resource officers are a great one. We've been doing that for years, and we're going to continue to do that. We have increased contracts coming up right now with Morrison and Chelan to increase their staffing. We're not going to let down on that. But locally, we have been doing it. And so when we saw the uptick in the gang activity, specifically in East Wenatchee, I'm going to give big credit to Chief Johnson, who used to be our Chief of Patrol at the Chelan County Sheriff's Office, is that he had some solutions and some ideas, and we roundtable discussed that at the command level, because all of our local agencies meet monthly and discuss these type of things, and it's something that's been talking about, and they came up with some proactive game patrol, where we're doing some stuff to hit it over in East Wenatchee, and we're dedicating overtime shifts from Wenatchee PD and Chelan County Sheriff's Office, even though it's in that jurisdiction. We said we have to fight this combined effort to do this. As far as the task force, yeah, we have a commander, our Chief of Special Operations, Chris Foreman, who oversees the drug task force and was a task force sergeant for 8 years prior to that. We had an analyst, we had a sergeant, and we had a detective, and then overseen by the commander, with the other agencies had 1 detective involved. And again, as I talked about earlier, how we restructured that, when Wenatchee PD came in and said it's time for them to absorb some of that cost over the years. If they had paid $1 million for the city of Wenatchee, the Chelan County's paid $2 or $3 million in that. And so it's time to share that wealth and distribute those costs across the board. But we are working better than ever, and they are addressing it. One of the big issues for gangs, and I'll give credit to this to Chief Johnson and his staff over there, because he used to work the PROACT team on the streets of Wenatchee when he was involved with Wenatchee PD's PROACT team as a line officer and a sergeant. Is he said all of a sudden these junior high kids that are packing around guns and shooting each other and getting violent and in the faces of other students and staff, they're 2nd generation gangbangers. That's a learned behavior. That's the society, that's the family institute that they've grown up in. So I don't know how you think law enforcement is going to change that alone, but this is going to take more than the village people, and we are looking out and looking at other resources, and we've never had a better relationship, working partnership than between all of our local law enforcement agencies ever before. Don't take my word for it. Go in and see the testimonies, because the other local leaders are endorsing me to be your next, again, elected sheriff.
So Chief of Patrol Adam Musgrove recently said that the mental health crisis is the #1 issue facing law enforcement. What needs to be done to fix the problem or address it?
And I'm thankful for that man who's got that title and he's sitting right down here in the crowd. I'd love for you guys to have some conversations with him on the side. It is a huge one. And behavioral health is driven by a lot of different things. And some of it is drug related. And some of it's not. And some of it's enhanced by drug use. But more than ever, we're seeing behavioral health issues continue to rise and uptick. And we're really seeing it here locally in our own backyard. And so one of the things that happened is I had staff come to me and said, we've got to do something because we're going to lose the program that we have here. So we put together a plan and we went and presented it to the commissioners last early fall. It was right about a year ago. And they voted on it that exact same day and said, we want to support this. And within 2 months, we had a behavioral health coordinator hired who was a designated crisis responder for another agency, came on to take that lead. At the first of the year, we hired another one, and this is under the commissioners. And then she helped us write a couple grants, a couple for the sheriff's office, another one independently. And the plan was always along is to find the funding to take this regionally, because it's not about this side of the Columbia River and this side of the Cascade Mountains, the Chelan County, is we got to make this bigger because the criminals, the homelessness, the drugs, the behavioral health issues aren't a boundary. It's going to be much greater than that. It's across the U.S., it's across the state, it's a region, so we're going to make a regional impact. And so we said we need to grow this team to do it. So we're diverting, so now we have 4, we just hired a second 2. And from January, they went in about 36 contacts. And in August, we had, I think, 346, just under 350. They're making an impact. They're going out and they're identifying people in crisis. They have the resources to do that. We're actually making overtime shifts. We have designated diversion, mental health deputies. And we got some pushback on this from our association, different levels of members on that. And we went in and tried to do it the best we could. But we have a program that's up and running, and it's probably one of the best, I would say top 3 in the state, and not even across the nation, because we went and presented our staff nationally. We're looking at officer resilience and wellness, things that we can go across the board for our citizens and our officers to protect them in the future. And then the commissioners just recently voted to bring that program, and we're going to transition that program into the sheriff's office, and then we'll become sheriff's office employees because we're doing it right, we're diverting it, we're going to save money in the criminal justice. But it's about long term. Short term, a nuisance problems, going to take them off the street and get them to quit calling 911, and then after that we want to get them long-term solutions for their own independence and for their own resolve for them and their families as well.
Mike, your thoughts?
I also agree that along with drugs is our biggest issues we're currently facing. Certainly would want to give thanks to Spokane PD for being trendsetters and trailblazers in this industry, because that's where we got the idea from. I'd like to thank the deputy within our agency who went over there with our head for behavioral health for looking at it, assessing it, seeing how it fit with Chelan County, and for that deputy staying the course even though we had members within our agency telling him, if you want to be a social worker, get out of law enforcement. These are the kind of issues that I was glad to see him battle through and that he came here. I'd definitely like to thank Commissioner Overbay for pushing the process through to get us funding to make this happen. Without him, it wouldn't have come online as quick as possible. Also for Chief Musgrove for taking up the effort and putting in the work. So, I mean, he did a ton to get this going. So, I mean, it was a group effort. And for the sheriff here for also signing off and saying, yeah, I support it. So I would give him credit for that. And I like it. I want to see it out there. I'd utilize it on the road. This is what we were talking about before. What we were trained to do in the academy no longer worked. We needed a transition. I'm so glad it's here. I'm glad it's expanding. And I'm going to call her out, but I mean, Anna was the absolute driving force motivator. I was just so passionate about this. I'm glad she's here. I'm glad she's working hard for Chelan County, and that we were able to get that resource here in the county. To address the last thing, I am the association president. I'll address the exact issue that was brought up by several members within our association. Was the concern number one that we were addressing the behavioral health unit as law enforcement officers. They're wearing the same ballistic vests as us, same color, and they're getting out of our patrol car. The whole point of it was to separate law enforcement from mental health or behavioral health. So The big push was some were like, I don't want this person in my car because if things go south, now I have to protect two people instead of just myself. And we also feel by them getting out of the patrol car, we're already setting them up at a disadvantage because they're being identified as law enforcement because they're getting out of a vehicle that says Chelan County Sheriff's Office. They're dressed just like us. And this is the reason why we came up with this unit. We should be coming up with different apparel for them. We have vehicles within our motor pool that we could allow them to use, and it would be safer for them. I mean, we have no issue. There are some times where they are driving their own personal vehicles to scenes. That is crazy to think that these people who are in crisis could possibly associate these people with their own personal vehicles. What happens when they're off duty or with their family? That was the main issues that were brought up. And as the association, yes, 100%, if my members are voicing concern about something, I will go to the mat and fight. And if I certainly feel that new employees coming on our behavioral health unit are possibly in danger, I will fight to make sure they're safe and that they have the resources necessary in order to be successful. So that was the association piece.
Same with you, Mike. What role should the sheriff play in the community, and how far should his or her influence reach?
Pretty simple. Protect and serve, enforce the laws, make the community safe, protect our citizens, protect the businesses that invested hundreds, if not millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars here in our community to put up their buildings. I mean, we're seeing it over in King County, that a lot of those industries that are not getting the same level of service are pulling up stakes and going to other areas to run their businesses. We don't want that to happen in Chelan County. So the role should be protect and serve citizens and the businesses that come here, and keep out of the politics and personal agendas. I mean, our job's already complicated enough without trying to wade into those waters. So get back to law enforcement, get away from politics, personal agendas don't matter, make sure the citizens are happy, businesses are protected.
Brian, same question.
Well, we must want to get the elephant out of the room, because obviously he's saying that there's personal agendas and there's politics involved. And I will tell you this, that it's very important. I want to go back, but I'll come back to that. It's a big role. People look to the elected sheriff as the protection of the Constitution, number one. The Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. It always has been, and it always will be. And there's a lot of different opinions on that. And so when I see an agenda coming back from politics across the nation and statewide, it's time to get involved in politics to protect that. And we're not talking about being dirty and nasty, we're talking about being truthful and honest. But it's talking about standing up and having a voice when it's time to stand up and having a voice, rather than cowering down and letting the minority speak for the majority. That's really what this is about, people. And people look to the elected sheriff as the top elected, top law enforcement official. And it's important. I don't tout that title, because that's not the title that I see myself as, but that's the title that it is. And what I mean by that is I surround myself with people that are like-minded, but yet free thinkers. And they're gonna be coming in with ideas, and we create a team that is gonna serve the county the best we can. We've never gotten away from policing. We've never gotten away from enforcing the laws. We've always been doing that. And we've actually putting people in leadership positions recently that are doing a much greater job in that effort. And they're working closely and collaboratively with people all over the region and the state. I've never been more proud of our command staff and our supervisors and our line staff than ever before. We have the best agency that I've ever seen. And it's not that it was bad before, but we've really seen people step up to those positions, and they're doing an amazing job. So we'll continue to enforce that. We've never got away from that. But the sheriff has to get out and has to communicate, and you have to go and communicate with your legislators and your policy advisors, which is part of the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and the Washington Association of Sheriffs is on the current president. I'm a past president from WASPC. Chief Crown is the current president of WASPC, and there's a lot involved there. I didn't get involved in that in the first 4 years because I was trying to figure out how to run the sheriff's office. And as I brought in a command staff that could take over those operations, and I trusted them, I got more involved, because at some point in time, sheriffs and chiefs that are tenured have to step up, otherwise it doesn't happen. And that's the same reason that Chief Crown is in his position. He's tenured, he's been around, he's got some great leadership experience, he's got a good command staff that's leading their agency, and we're working closely together. And the same thing across the river with Sheriff Morris. He's now the incoming, be the president for Waspik next year. And it's the people stepping up to take leadership roles. It doesn't make it easier, it's just the right thing to do. And we all know the right thing to do isn't always the easiest, it's just the right thing to do. So BAS, they want to see us step up, be the leaders in the community, and represent, hire and train to the best of our abilities. We're going to continue to train, because again, it's of excellence. Our training doesn't want to be mediocre, we want to be excellent at it. And it's like a professional athlete, okay? So if a professional athlete from the Seahawks or any other Mariners, if they're training and going daily, they do that every day. But some of the things that we face, we don't get to train for that every day. So we got to take it serious, and we got to give our people the best training that we can, the best and the most that we can, and we'll continue to take that status. I'm not going to back down from the training.
Brian, if you're reelected, what's going to be your focus during your next term?
Well, obviously, we're going to continue on that thing. We're going to continue to focus. We're going to build our staff back up where we want. We're going to continue to put a little bit of pressure on and work with the commissioners. I don't want to be the commissioners. I don't want to tell them how to do their job. But the relationships that we built with the commissioners and the leaders here locally is they know when my team brings them information, it's accurate to the best of our ability. They trust the knowledge that's coming forward, and then we allow them to make the decisions what's best for the county to balance that budget. But we're going to focus on behavioral health. We're going to focus on dangerous drugs, and we're going to figure out how to fight that, because we're training and adjusting all the time. That's a lot what PTI was about, our regional training. We came in and we trained local agencies that didn't have the ability to train themselves on the new laws. And every time they pass a new law, it's like taking a step back and everybody's focusing on the command staff. And even for me, I gotta go back and look at my subject matter experts that are down the chain of command, because they truly are the ones that I look to. If I get a call from a policy advisor or a legislator and they ask me specific questions, I'll call my subject matter experts, because they're the one. I don't have all those answers, but I have the people that I trust to do that. So we're gonna continue to partner with Wenatchee PD, Douglas County Sheriff's Office, Washington State Patrol, that we're gonna be the best leaders we can, and you're gonna see us operate at a high function and to do the best we can. And you're gonna see the quality of life here is always gonna be better as long as you have this type of team mentality here. Not just the Sheriff's Office, but all the local agencies working together. Our quality of life, you go 100 miles in any other direction, and I guarantee you people don't feel as safe as they do here in Chelan, Douglas County. So anyway, just looking forward to proceeding on in the next 4 years.
Mike, what would be your focus in your first term?
Get the focus back to law enforcement, make sure that we have adequate staffing on the road. I think at times we have 3 to 4 people working a shift. It's not very adequate, especially with PTI, talking about that we have to have contact, cover, de-escalation, lawful authority. It's kind of hard to do that when you're by yourself. So it's usually stressed that you need to have one person out there covering you, the other one out there contacting. So getting our staffing levels back up. I think the 46 different departures that we've had over the last 8 years should speak volumes about the level of turmoil. I would go even further, because if that wasn't recognized, I mean, we've had 13 different appointments at the administrative level. It has never been stable. It's always been up and down. We've got new chiefs coming, new chiefs going, new officers coming, new officers going. Why don't we just get back to figuring out why are we having this kind of turnover? Why are we having these kind of issues? And once we stabilize there, we should be able to get our focus back to patrolling and doing our primary function. We're seeing agencies across the nation that are getting rid of their auxiliary programs in order to get the focus back to law enforcement, because the primary function is to be on the road, answer calls, address issues within the community. And if we can stabilize that, then let's start expanding back out and see if we can actually fulfill our contracts with the Marine Patrol. Any citizens in Chelan see our boat out in the water much this summer? I don't think so. I'd also ask you to go out there and check how many tickets we wrote. Not many. Force Service, we had a previous guy that was out there doing a fine job. We put another one in that has just as much talent and capability to do the job, but we're pulling him in 3 to 4 different directions, so he's not able to go out there and fulfill the contract. Same deal with our schools. I was a school resource officer. They were asking, where are you guys at? We're always covering for training. I agree, we have a great trained agency, but you're not gonna see them out on the road very often because we're focusing on training. I don't think that's gonna help you as a citizen very much. So when the calls are going pending, I've heard more complaints from citizens that have been out here campaigning. You guys won't even respond to our house. You won't return a phone call. and you pretty much tell us there's nothing you can do. That is 100% unacceptable for an agency to get to a response for, we handle like probably 2 to 3 calls a shift per deputy. We're not exactly getting our butts handed to us out there. So a lot of time probably spent drinking coffee instead of coming up with solutions on how can we actually explain why we are not going out there and responding to calls and returning phone calls and dealing with issues. We just give excuses, and we put our focus back onto our own image and how we look statewide. So I would get back to the basics, law enforcement.
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left, so I'd like to just offer both of you a few minutes to tell people why they should vote for you and address anything that may have come up during our conversation here that you wish you could have addressed. Mike, we'll start with you.
It would be a change from the direction we've been going on. Correct, we have paid out of lawsuits, I believe $2.5 million so far. We have another one pending. We've had mass departure of employees. 46 is more than half of our agency. We do not listen to any of those employees as they exit, even though they have voiced concerns that mirror a lot of the problems that have been brought up in our lawsuits. The instability, even at the administrative level, with the amount of turnover we had there, has also been a change of direction every couple of years. We get a different vision, so we're gonna start heading this way, we're gonna start heading this way. Let's just stay focused on what we're supposed to be doing instead of coming up with all these programs. We do not have a large agency. We should not be going out there trying to solve all of the state's problems. We should be solving Chelan County's problems. It's like the United States military. It seems like everyone wants us to go out there and solve their problems. We can't always fix every single issue. We should try to fix the issues within our own communities and our own country before we go out there trying to fix everyone else's. So I would like to see it get back to a sheriff who is 100% committed to the community, will take accountability. If we get sued, I will explain why we got sued. I will not go out and do NDAs. I will tell you exactly why I had to pay out your taxpayer dollars. If I have employees within that are bullying, harassing, intimidating, we're gonna address it instead of saying, no, there's nothing we can really do to address this employee's behavior. You know, that's just who he is. Okay, well, who he is getting us sued, so why are we not addressing that? And then getting the focus back to our partners that we do contract with. Our Washington State Parks, who funds our Marine program, and our Forest Service patrols, and our Chelan County roads, who have been sitting there asking us, what have you been doing with our money all these years? We don't have any stats to show that we've been doing anything with it besides using it for our own personal gain, and that's not responsible use of taxpayer dollars. I'd also like to go out and make more efforts to retain our employees instead of having to go out there and trying to recruit. We're currently 6 down, and most agencies around here in the region are not having that kind of issue recruiting, and there is a reputation that we have as an agency that we need to step away from. So I would like to see the focus just get back to Chelan County, and come this November, I'll be your next sheriff, and I plan on addressing those issues straight out the gate when I take office in January.
Brian, your final word.
Well, as your 3-time elected sheriff, because I am the Chelan County Sheriff, and I will be for the next 4 years, so that's our plan. If we can have the vote again, and I think that my team deserves that, and it's not about me, it's about a team that's working. Born and raised in Chelan County, married to my wife April in the back, 35 years. We have 7 children. We have 6 biological and an adopted daughter that I love just as much as my biological children. I have 7th grandchild on the way. That's 5 generations in Chelan County. You can say what he wants. I'm invested here. I've always cared about Chelan County. I started in jail in 1998. This is the only agency in law enforcement that I've worked for. I transferred to the field in 1999. I worked as a patrol corporal, patrol sergeant, city of Chelan sergeant. Spent a couple of years as a school resource officer, 8 years on the regional SWAT team. I've spent several years as a field training officer. And then as your elected sheriff, I've been through a lot of different executive level training, and I continue to learn. And as I surround myself with team members in the sheriff's office, I learn from them because they're that quality. Chief Johnson was our chief of patrol, and I signed a reference letter because I knew he would be good for this valley to move us forward. But let me set some records straight here. In the last 12 years, I've hired 74 employees. Yes, we've had turnover. His numbers are way off because he doesn't know what the real numbers are, but my staff does. And we've had 56 people leave for various other reasons. You need to go onto our webpage BurnettForSheriff.com, and you need to look at the candid video series, and there's a lot of testimonies in there, and there's endorsements from people that are involved in local law enforcement here today, not people that are retired and been held accountable. And so holding people accountable is not an easy thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. Have we made mistakes? Absolutely, and we've admitted to those. But we move forward and continue to strive to do what is best for Chelan County, and we'll continue to do that. And there's an 80-20 rule. If you guys heard of the 80-20 rule, it's basically there's a group of individuals out there. Is if you go in and correct their behavior or policy violations, or not stepping up to their commitments to their teams, and when you go to hold them accountable, there's a group of people that respond to the 80% rule. It says, yeah, you're right. I recognize that, and I want to do it as best. And then we work with them for the good of the people, our agency, and the people that we serve in Chelan County. It's not just Chelan County, it's the people that come here and recreate here, people from all over. And then there's the 20%, which I think is actually less than that. And they don't respond well, and they become unhappy, and they become the ones that actually almost bully you into the era that we live in. So go and talk to the people that we have out there as our endorsements and people, and take their word for it. Don't take mine. Talk to the commissioners, talk to the county administrator, talk to those people that we work closely, talk with our local law enforcement leaders. They know the team that we have, and I'm excited about taking another 4 years and serving humbly as your sheriff. So thank you for being here tonight.
I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, gentlemen. Another round of applause for our candidates. They both got tables on that. Thanks for sharing your Mondays.